Hey guys, it is Monday, September 11th. I'm gonna do some Q&A response here. From today, I actually did I did an Instagram thread instead of a Facebook thread today, just so a few different people got to answer some or ask some questions, and it looks like everyone that asked a question was actually different than folks that normally ask. So that was my goal. So, glad to see some different people here. Okay. Alright, here we go. Difference in results from meat and rice versus oats and whey multiple times a day, calories being equal. See any advantages, disadvantages? No, it's just a, that's just kind of a simple macros thing, calories in, calories out. I mean, the biggest thing is going to be digestion. As long as digestion's good, I don't see a problem interchanging those two. Those are still well within, reasonable food choices. It's not like you're asking, having meat and rice versus whey and pixie sticks all day long. It's not complete junk processed carb. I mean, some processed carbohydrate intake or some processed food intake is okay in moderation, because at times it can even be used for digestive purposes. If you're taking in a lot of food and you need something that'll digest a little bit quicker and easier, that can be a good option. But in this case, no problem at all. I don't see any issue. I would say, personally, I would probably not do very well having whey and oats all day long. It just wouldn't do that well with my digestion. Oats tend to pull a lot of water into the GI tract and tend to have, kind of a little bit of bloating if you're taking in a lot of them. So all day long might be an issue, but in general, no, not a problem. Next one, if one rotates protein sources throughout a week's time frame, does the total leucine count matter much if protein is matched? For example, having whey more than beef on a given day, the leucine would be higher. Not really, no, because the main thing with leucine content is leucine is going to be important for muscle protein synthesis. So in this case, you're not really going to get much more after a certain point. If you're taking in the X amount of leucine versus Y amount of leucine, as long as you're maximally stimulating MPS, then it's not going to make that much of a difference. And most people that are taking in enough protein for their body weight are going to maximally stimulate MPS anyhow. So I really don't see an issue with switching out things like meat and whey and fish and eggs and egg whites and stuff like that. I don't think it's really going to make any difference at all, to be completely honest. And even if it made any type of difference, I don't think it would be anything that you would see. So, no. Now, I would just rotate food sources just for the fact of having different micronutrients and not eating the same things all the time. So, as far as like building up food sensitivities and stuff. But as far as like hypertrophy goes, nah, you're not going to notice anything. Can you improve insulin sensitivity while in a caloric maintenance or even surplus strictly through reduction of carbs while raising protein and fats so that total calories stay the same? For example, reducing carbs by 100 grams or raising fats by 45. Oh shit. I actually I wrote a post about this probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago. Maybe it could have been more. I'm talking about the fact that sometimes it just kind of depends on how bad how insulin resistant you really are. Look at your body too. There's going to be a little more context to the situation. So, are you also holding a lot of body fat? So, if you're holding a lot of body fat or too much body fat and you're becoming insulin resistant, then you're better off just going into a caloric deficit. That's going to be your best choice anyhow, probably because you need to lose body fat and also you need to become more insulin sensitive. So just go into a deficit. And that deficit might consist of lowering carbohydrates. That's probably going to get you sensitive a little bit quicker. But the reason I think part of the reason he's probably asking this is just because every macro is going to contribute to insulin resistance to an extent. So some contribute to it more than others, but to some extent every macro will. And at some point you may just have to go into a caloric deficit to, you know, get sensitivity back. Now I think in most people, let's say, giving context to the situation again, if someone is not holding too much body fat and their digestion's good, all that stuff's good, there's no, you know, like indication of chronic inflammation or anything like that, it's worth a try, just flip-flopping you know, the macros and staying within the caloric intake. Yeah, that'll definitely work. I mean, it can definitely work for some people. It's going to be helpful because you are going to get less insulin response from, you know, protein and fats versus carbs, though again, they're still going to contribute some. But yeah, doing like a harsh flip-flop of those, or a pretty drastic, you know, flip-flop of those can definitely help. It's going to bring blood sugar down. It's going to help, no doubt about it. Then you can also do other things like your glucose disposal agents if you're not already. You can stronger things like metformin and stuff along those lines, and basal insulin and things like that might help. But again, context kind of depends. So to recap, if you're fat and you're insulin resistant, then just go into a deficit. If you're not fat and you are becoming insulin resistant, then yeah, try the flip-flop. See how that works out for you first and foremost. Next question. Got a couple more here. All right. You mentioned colostrum in your last Q&A for digestion purposes. Are you still using it? Which brand and dose? I don't think it does a damn thing for growth, but heard very compelling arguments for digestion and immune support. So yeah, I'm not using it for muscle growth. I don't think it does anything for muscle growth. I don't think it raises IGF to some magical level or anything along those lines. So no. But a quality colostrum supplement definitely has a lot of benefits in terms of digestion and immune support. So if you were to go on something like examine.com and look at the actual breakdown of it and all the benefits, there are a ton. I mean, colostrum has a ton of benefits behind it if you're using the right dosing. So there's a couple of cofactors that you're looking for in colostrum. The main one being, I believe they label it as IgE, I think, or IgG. I need to double check on that. But in any case, you're looking for a certain amount, and that's typically it's typically in the, depends on what source you're looking at, but typically like in the 2 to 4-ish gram range. So you take total colostrum content, and then there'll be a percentage on there. So it'll say this product is, you know, 20% of this compound and 20% of this compound, and then look at, so what's your total content? So for me, the product I use, I believe, is 20%, and I use, I believe it's 20%. So I would use a minimum of like 10 grams, you know, so I'm getting the 2 gram minimum of the cofactors that I need. So it could be more. Some of them I see are only 10%, and I think I've seen some that are 30. I don't know about 40, but definitely 30. And as far as like the product goes, I don't even remember the name of the product that I have off the top of my head. Though in general, I just try to look for something that is as pure as possible. They have good, you know, good manufacturing practices. They might be, organic, things like that. The more pure, the better when it comes to something like that, because you're looking for these specific cofactors and you want the product to be as pure as possible. There are, I tend to like, you know, sources from, if it's like New Zealand, you know, you get your, you know, your dairies from New Zealand's good, their New Zealand whey and things like that. They make a couple good products. I think mine's like California Gold something or other. I honestly have to go back and look. But the more pure the product, the better. Look for good manufacturing practices, and basically that it's produced in the correct facility. So the dosing would be 2 to 4 grams of the IG. Let me look actually. Let me see. I want to actually look at the exact. Make sure you guys know the exact cofactor there as they label it. Oh, and we're looking for a bovine source, preferably. There are other, you might see some other shitty sources, but normally extracted from bovine is going to be what you're looking for. Oh. Well, I am not seeing what I need. Yeah, IgE. Right, yeah. IgE and IgD. So, yeah, that's what we're looking for. Those are the main cofactors you need. There are other cofactors in there, but those are going to be the main ones that we're looking for. And it's going to give you percentage, do the math, figure out how many grams of each. So, yep, there's your dose. And for immune support, it's fantastic. A lot of literature behind it for immune support. And then digestion, mainly it's used for leaky gut, though I think just as general digestion, it's going to be a great product. But leaky gut's typically what it's used for. So if someone has the symptoms of leaky gut, then that's going to be a solid choice. And then, sorry about the delay on that. I want to make sure you guys knew what you were looking for. All right, 2 more. Benefits or negatives to Liss every day in your program and ideal times. For example, would there be any advantages to changing the times up every other day? For example, Monday 45 minutes, Tuesday 20 minutes, etc. I'm not really sure the context of this. So, I mean, yeah, if you need to burn more calories, then do Liss every day. You could. I mean, that's not to say that you can't. Plenty of people have to do it. Plenty of people, it's necessary for plenty of people. Negatives as far as it's not going to make you wither away to nothing if you need to do it to burn them adequate calories. So no, I mean there's not really any negatives to it. The biggest negative would obviously be something like if you're trying to gain muscle and it's preventing you from being in a caloric surplus. But in general, I mean not really any negatives to it. I would say that it's not very taxing on your CNS either. So, it might be, if you have to do cardio really frequently, it could be a good idea to have a fair amount of Liss in there also. That way you're not just smashing your CNS with HIIT, but HIIT's great. So if you can handle it, do it. As far as the varying times go, I'm not sure. I mean, you're going to burn different amount of calories in different time frames at different intensities and different speeds. And for me, I find it's easiest to set it at an exact amount and just modify it from there. So if someone's doing 20 minutes at certain speed or whatever, depending on the equipment, that's this distance. They do this distance every time. It produces, pretty much this caloric expenditure, and I can just add or I can reduce. And I pretty much know I can go up and down. And obviously that's not, your metabolism is going to be flexible. It's going to move around, but at least you're adjusting it up and down in certain increments. Now, if you're not going to get there's not going to be any trickery from doing 20 one day and 45 the other day, other than maybe you'll do, more on a non-training day and less on a training day or something like that. So, but I would need more context to give you anything else here, unfortunately. So that last one. Have you dealt with or have had clients that have had elbow tendonitis? If so, any recommendations in regards to healing it? Thanks. Okay, so Okay, so tendonitis, usually an inflammatory type of issue from overuse. Tricky thing about this is we keep using it normally, so it normally gets worse, and it can be hard to heal. Elbow especially, I mean, people beat the shit out of their elbows, chest, triceps, biceps, shoulders, all that stuff. And we just keep beating it and beating it and beating it, and it just never gets a break and never gets better. So biggest thing would be try not to use it as much if you could. Let the inflammation go down that way. Things like elbow sleeves. Now with the sleeves, I like something that would have a little bit of elasticity in the bottom part of the sleeve. So a little bit of elasticity to help with transition in the movement. Yeah, it might help you move a little tiny bit more weight, but it's a little easier on the joint. Something that adds a little compression. Things like healing peptides, TB500, BPC 157. The BPC is typically better localized. Might have some local effect. I don't know that we have anything definitive to tell us whether it does, but it seems to. So as close to the area as possible subcutaneously. Dosing could be anywhere from dosing's everywhere. Could be 200, 300, 400 mcgs a couple times a day, maybe just once a day, depending on your budget. But it's going to be right around that area. Grab some skin and try to do it subcutaneously. TB500 doesn't seem to have as much local activity, so it could be done subcutaneously somewhere else. And we're looking at, milligram, 2 milligrams, a couple times a week at least. Might be able to back it off a little bit as you go, but those are options. Basic things with inflammation, using maybe stem on the area, like a TENS unit, using things like ice, heat, or ice and heat, and things along those lines. Anti-inflammatory if you absolutely need it. Taking anti-inflammatory supplements over the counter, things like high bioavailable curcumin, fish oil, krill oil, things like that. Boswellia is a good one. Any like a 5-LOX inhibitor could be good. There are several supplements. Life Extension makes a really good 5-LOX inhibitor. Yeah, I want to say MSM too. I mean, there's several, but the thing with the inflammation too is, if you're constantly pounding anti-inflammatories, whether it's over the counter or otherwise, obviously you're going to kind of cut into some of the inflammatory response of your training and muscle growth and what have you. So trying to take those things away from your training session might be beneficial. But those are all things that you can use and then ultimately rest it. And then lastly, try to figure out why it's happening. If it's just that it's a form issue, it's something like one certain exercise or a couple exercises, then get rid of them. Or a form issue on some exercise that you can tweak. You can tuck your elbow here, move it out here, and make it better. Then do that. Or you change your range of motion, then do it. There's no one if you're doing skull crushers and they hurt like hell, then probably just stop doing them. And then find out if there's any imbalances in the area. Do you have an impingement in your shoulder, in your trap, in your neck, anything like your upper back, anything like that that's pulling one side a certain way that's different than the other side of your body? So if you're doing a bilateral movement, with a barbell or something like that, or overhead extension with the easy bar, you might be doing something really funky on one side. The motion track is off, and that's causing repetitive grinding on this area and inflammation in one area. So you might think, oh, it's in my elbow, but it could actually originate somewhere else. Massage work, ART, even NMT, getting those areas freed up and everything loosened and relatively even will be helpful. So I hope that helps, guys. That brings us to about 20 minutes, so perfect for this one. I think I got them all. Yep. good questions this week, and we'll do it again next time. Thanks.